very good afternoon to our cherished listeners once again. It's always exciting to come your way every Wednesday with your favorite business development program on Radio Masterclass. Masterclass is powered by Joy Business and brought to us by Goyle. Goyle, they say good energy. Goyle, Yenara, Yendia. As we always like to start with here on the show, we always say that it's never too late to start. It's the 9th of October today, 2019. A few more months and then the year comes to an end, but it still hasn't ended. So if there's something that you thought of doing, something you thought of starting earlier on in the year, it's still never too late to start. By all means, do start. Like a certain popular brand of footwear says, just do it. Just do it. We bring you Masterclass every Wednesday at 1:15 p.m. right here on the Superstation Joy 99.7 and around all the way through to 2 p.m. here on your Superstation. My name is Yabanafo and I'm your host for the show. Like we always say here on the show, everything we do on Masterclass is essentially to help your businesses to become better. Like we always also say that life is too short to make all the mistakes yourself, so there's no point making all the mistakes yourself. Let's learn from what somebody else has done so that where they fell, we will not fall, we will definitely rise again. Last week, if you listened into the show, we spent time in the studio with another wonderful resource person by name Ekuya Asantua Opokutu, for quite the mouthful. Ekuya, good afternoon to you. Thank you for sharing time with us last week. Last week, she spent time talking to us about her experience, her story. You know, we like to do that every now and again because when we talk about the theories, when we talk about all the things that, you know, the theories say, smile, recruit well, purposeful, have a vision, have a mission, and all of that, how does that translate into your business? How is that realistic on the day when the sales are not coming in, on the day when people are not ringing, the phone is not ringing, when, you know, the checks are not coming in? How do all these theories translate? And so every now and again, we like to get real, go out into the market and speak to a few people. So Ekuya was at the studio with us last week, and she shared her story with us. She had set up about 5 companies, and she is still setting up some more. More grease to your elbow, Ekuya. Before that, we had also spent time in the studio with Mami Yekua Gezi talking about business culture and the need to have a good culture in your business. Because the thing is whether or not you work it, you will have a culture. It's up to you to make it good or bad. It's up to you to make it good or bad. Today, we want to go straight into another area of a topic that has not been discussed enough, you know, whenever we talk about business. And it's the interesting topic of leadership. I mean, every seminar you go to, every business thing you listen to, people talk about leadership. Sometimes we think we know what it is, but there's this beautiful thing about leadership which focuses on results. So it's not so much of what you say you can do, it's what shows at the end of time. And a very famous person said to me once, he says, don't tell me what you can do, show me what you have done. Show me what you have done. We will be spending time in the studio in the next couple of weeks, today and the next couple of weeks, with another wonderful resource person. If you'd like to see my resource persons, you can join us. We're streaming live on Facebook, myjoyonline.com, and she is the CEO of a company called Busara Africa. I hope I pronounced it well, Busara Africa. And Busara Africa is a Pan-African leadership development firm. We're telling you a bit more about Busara Africa, but just to give you a bit of background about our resource person today, I'll tell you her name in a bit. She's a very, so I've got a very tall order here. I'm going to try and just skip through, but she's a leadership trainer, professional coach, and organizational development specialist who has been working for over 20 years. So she has 20 years of experience under her belt. Whatever she says today, I can vouch that you should listen to it and try and apply it. She's worked across Europe, across Africa. She's got a plethora of qualifications. I don't even want to go into it now. But she does also have a certificate in organizational development, and she knows her stuff. She's in the person of, I hope I pronounce it right, Taka Awori. Drum roll. Okay, so Taka, you're welcome to the show.
Thanks very much.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
I have been excited because I spent time talking to you a few hours ago. Should I say hours ago?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and yesterday, just trying to get to know you. And it was an exciting discussion. I'm hoping we can bring that same energy right here onto the show. You're going to be talking to us about leadership, but you have put it into 3 interesting areas. You know, when I started to research on this, my mind went straight to the traditional things. What is leadership? The types of leadership, advantages of leadership, disadvantages of, you know, but you have put it beautifully.
Yes.
And we're going to be looking at it in 3 main areas. We're going to be looking at leading self,
leading
others,
and then leading the organization or the company.
So this is an audit of of one's ability to lead, if you like, here on the show, isn't it?
Yes,
So
yes.
we're going to be spending some time talking about that. I'll share a few thoughts before we do, though, but just so that my audience can connect. Very briefly, who's the voice behind the person? Who's Taka?
Okay. Thanks very much, Yao, and greetings to all your listeners. I'm really excited to be on the show today and for the rest of the month talking about my passion, leadership. Who is Taka? I know as your listeners are hearing my voice and particularly my accent, they're trying to figure out, where is this woman from? So maybe I should start by saying where I'm from. And I do that by defining or listing the countries that claim me and the countries I call home. So I'm originally from Uganda. I was born in Uganda, but my hometown is a town on the border of Kenya and Uganda. So it's like a flower.
Right.
So my father is Ugandan, but most of his siblings are Kenyan. So I also claim Kenya as home. So Uganda is home and Kenya is home.
And you live in Ghana?
Yes, and then I live in Ghana, and my children are Ghanaian, and I've lived here now for about 16 years. So I've lived in Ghana longer than anywhere
So
else.
it's safe to say that you're West African.
There's another dimension. My mother is Liberian.
Okay.
So that's the fourth country I
Right.
call home. So it's safe to say I'm not West African, I am African.
You're African.
This
I like
is the
that.
new Africa.
I like that.
Yes.
I like that. Let's talk about football.
Hey,
Best,
yeah, why
best,
are you
best
going
soccer
there?
team.
Why are you going? Now, when I was growing up, I used to live in the UK, and I had my favorite team then, and that was
EPL.
Tottenham. No, it wasn't. It was Tottenham.
Don't say Tottenham.
It was
Hotspur.
Tottenham.
Gosh.
I'm being very frank. It was Tottenham.
Okay, you know they haven't been doing too well.
I
lately.
know,
Okay.
but I think this is the whole thing about being a fan. You have to be loyal, Yao.
Whether or not they're
regardless,
up.
whether or not you can't be skipping
Let's
around.
move very quickly from football. What kind of music do you like?
So you had asked me what are my two. I like a range of music. I
Okay.
like R&B, and I like hip life.
Okay.
Yes. So
Okay.
and I also like jazz. I didn't used to, but increasingly I'm falling in
You're
love
falling
with
for jazz.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so my producer has managed to put something together for you. This one is Anybody by Burna Boy. We'll take a quick listen, and when we come back, we go straight into our
Brilliant.
discussion. Yes?
Great.
All right, then. Let's take a quick listen.
Okay.
I don't charge my energy, I no get time for
Super Hits Radio. Joy 99.7. 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 Super Hits Radio. Joy 99.7.
I take out to the
Super Hits.
That was Anybody by Burna Boy. If you've just tuned in, this is Masterclass here on your Superstation Joy 99.7. We're spending time in the studio today with a wonderful, wonderful resource person by name Taka Awori, and she's going to be talking to us about leadership. So, Taka, very quickly, I just thought I'd look up a few people who had said a few interesting words on leadership, just to sort of set the tone for today's discussion. Today we're talking about leading self. Okay, so there's a gentleman called John Quincy Adams, and this is what he has to say about leadership. He says, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you're a leader. This is from John Quincy Adams. John is a diplomat, he's a lawyer in the U.S. John Maxwell is also an author and a speaker and a pastor as well. John Maxwell is a popular person. He says that the pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects the wind to change, but the leader adjusts his sail. I'll take that again. That struck me very strongly. I mean, I looked at a couple of people, but John Maxwell's quote really struck me. He says that the pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change, but the leader adjusts his sails. There is a lot of information on leadership, but today we're talking about leading self. Leading self. Time check in the studio, 26 minutes past the hour of 1. Talk to us about leading self. All the entrepreneurs who are listening, all the people who want to start businesses who are listening, they probably have gone for some seminars, have some certificates on management and on leadership and all of that. So I asked myself, what's management and what's leadership? Theoretically, they seem to be the same and the lines are grey. But one of the distinct differences that I picked up, and this one was from Wikipedia, preparing for this show, was that a leader has people who follow them, and a manager has people who work for them. So while you're both in a sort of frontal position, one has followership and one just has a team they work with. These may seem like words, but really, what is leadership and how does one lead themselves?
Great.
Take us away.
Sure. And thanks, Yao. And I love the way you started with those quotes, but I think there's something very telling about those quotes. Note that those two quotes were from American men. And so I found that the literature, the whole sector around leadership has been very much dominated by thinking in the West, and particularly corporate America. And I think there's such a big need for us to start talking about what does leadership mean in an African context? What does it mean when you're running a business in Ghana? Because leadership is very situational. The kind of leadership you would need if you're running a multinational in New York would be quite different if you're running a business right here in Accra and Kokomlemle. And I'm hoping that our conversation in this month really talks about what does that mean for our context. So definition of leadership and how I define leadership, and particularly my leadership philosophy in an African context, is defined by two things. One is that leadership is about influencing others to achieve a shared goal. So very similar to the definition you gave where you differentiated between leadership and management, a manager gets people to do things because of the authority that they have. A leader gets people to do things because they want to do things. And I think that's very important in our African context because for us, leadership has been about a title. And I think on this continent, we need to move from seeing leadership about a title, that you are a leader when you are the MD. You're a leader when you're the CEO. You are the manager, or you're honorable. You are essentially, everyone needs to step up to leadership, and you can exercise leadership in different spaces. So that's a key thing. That's what I'd say the first step, or one of the first elements of my leadership philosophy. You don't need a title to be a leader. The second element is that leadership needs to be exercised from the inside out. And what do I mean by that? It's about integrity, ethics, managing your emotions, managing your ego. Again, I find that very critical in the African context where people are leaders and have titles, but because of the authority that comes with the office, the way they exercise leadership, nobody holds them to account on that. And then that weakens whether people are truly following, because I think in Africa we also have a way of also saying, yes, sir, yes, madam. Yes, you think people are following, but they're actually doing something else. And you see this particularly when you're running a business. You think, oh, everybody's on board with me. They've all agreed. But all you're doing is managing with your authority. You're not really leading a team. But
It just reminds me of a very quick joke where
Yes.
a mother was dressing up a child and says, sit down. And the child stands and says, sit down. And then beats the child and says, sit down, third time. And the child sits. And the child says, Mummy, he says, what? He says, even though I'm sitting down, In my heart, I'm still standing.
You've got it. That's hilarious. And you've hit it on the head. It is about getting people to want to follow you to that vision. And when you're running a business, I think what I see many people struggling with is that they realize they don't have a team that's really following them to achieve the mission of the business. But, and this is the key thing about the second thing, inside out, for people to follow you, it's not just about the vision, but it's who you are. Because you may see where you want this business to go, and they may not see it exactly the same way. But they trust you because of your ethics. They trust you because of your integrity. They trust you because of how you're able to manage your ego and your emotions. So a lot of leadership is about who you are rather than what you do. You start with who you are, and then that follows in terms of what you do. So those two things, leadership without a title and leadership from the inside out. And then that brings me to, I think, the point you raised earlier. Keeping that in mind, I often think about leadership at 3 levels, therefore. So leading self, leading others, and leading the organization. And that's why we're focusing today on leading self. Because I think, Yao, you've seen, you can't lead another until you lead yourself.
Makes sense.
You just can't do it. So it needs to start with self. And I've seen that in terms of running my business. And okay, now that sounds very theoretical and philosophical. So what does that mean? If I could just break it down, and particularly maybe using my own example and my own journey. There have been 5 elements to this aspect of leading self. Number 1, the first element is you need to know your why and your what. And what do I mean by that? Be clear on why you've gone into business. Is it a higher purpose? Is there a gap in the market? But be very clear on that, because when things get rough, you need to revert back to that purpose. Why am I in business? Was it to have more financial freedom? Was it to have more time on my hands? But it's that why that will keep you on track when things are rough. The what is being clear on what you're trying to achieve. I think that will also keep you on track when things get difficult, but it will also help you to make choices about, should I go for this business or not? Should I go with this client or not? Shall I take this strategy? So I think what many of your listeners who are running businesses need to ask themselves in terms of leading self, number 1, are you clear on your why and your what? The second, which seems obvious, but it's so interesting how we get so excited about things and then we just run without anything, is have a plan. Develop a plan that guides you. And what I've also seen is that sometimes people won't develop the plan because they have a dream for their business, but they can't actually see how they will realize that dream. So they're thinking, oh no, I can't do this because I can't imagine. And I always say, don't let that stop you. All you need to figure out is the first step. Have a plan for the first year, and you will be guided as you start to go along. So don't let not knowing how stop you from moving forward. As you develop a plan, I've also seen people develop a very nice business plan, invest in it, and then it goes on a shelf. So it's also having a team that holds you accountable on that. I have a board, and just the fact that when we have board meetings, they can say, okay, so Taka, you had said you had a target for the second quarter was this. How far have you gone? That helps to keep me on track. So again, listeners asking themselves, what is my plan and how am I holding myself accountable on the plan? So that's number 2. Number 3 is a strange one. And I would say number 3, and this is what I've learned, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Running a business is hard. You have your wonderful days and then you have your very difficult days. But really, it's recognizing that when you run a business, it will force you out of your comfort zone. When I started Busara, I realized I know my comfort zone. I know how to do leadership training. I know how to do coaching. I know how to do facilitation. Now, all of a sudden, running a business, I needed to do marketing, sales, finance. That was completely outside of my comfort zone. But I realized if this business was going to work, I needed to get out of my comfort zone and develop some expertise and some knowledge in these areas. So I think listeners need to keep in mind that it's okay when you're outside of your comfort zone. It's showing that you are growing. So it does mean that you need to practice courage where you act, not because there is no fear, but in spite of your fear. So many times I'm petrified, but I'm still out there actually doing it. And when running a business, many times it is scary. The fourth is develop and invest in yourself. Essentially, it's recognizing your business cannot grow if you are not growing. Essentially, you're almost like the cap. So you need to ensure that you're constantly learning and getting better. It means investing time and resources on that. And I recognize that's not easy. I mean, because many times you're running a business, you're trying to do so many things, but it's pausing to sharpen the saw. Investing in yourself is not just about your skill set. It's also about achieving balance. Again, the stress on entrepreneurs and business owners can be intense because there's no 9 to 5. It's 24/7, 7 days a week. You're constantly thinking about your business. So one of the things I have really had to work on is how to achieve balance, how to turn it off and say, you know what, Taka, it's okay. Pause for now. And the last fifth point about leading self is about failure, embracing failure. Again, it's recognizing running a business, there will be highs and there will be valleys. Sometimes things will not go as planned, but that is business. I think many of your listeners have probably seen that. So rather than seeing failures as a problem, redefine them as learning moments. In that way, you develop your own resilience. And in many respects, you also need to find people who will support you when you're facing those low moments, because they will come. And through that, you practice learned optimism. So in that way, you're able to embrace whatever failure comes, but you're not looking at it as a bad thing, but as an opportunity to learn. So those, I would say, are my 5 key ways I have learned to lead self in running my business.
And this is something that it's not from a textbook. This is something that you have learned yourself.
I have
and
learned.
it works.
Yes. I've learned myself, but I've also watched, because this is what I do for a living. I support leaders in their work. And again, the thing I've learned from seeing myself, but also watching others, number one is this importance of leading self, but also these 5 points I've seen also tend to be quite critical.
I find them to be really exciting, and I emphasize the point about the fact that you had done them yourself, because it's important for people to be able to connect at different levels. Failure is one of those things that you can't avoid if you're running a business, but it's also one of the things that we don't handle very well. So sometimes it's not as though you were looking for an association of people who have failed, but it feels good to know that I'm not alone.
Yes.
This is not the first time it's happening in the world.
Yes.
Somebody has been there. This is how they got out of that place. And then you're able to handle it better. Because sometimes even the failure allows you to step back and then prepare and then go out even bigger, isn't it?
Yes.
Time check in the studio, 38 minutes past the hour. And if you just tuned in, this is Masterclass right here on your Superstation. We'll be opening the phone lines shortly. Ahead of that, if you want to send us a comment or a question, you can do that on 0244-340-437. We'll be opening the phone lines right after this.
The masterclass is in session, and you can interact with us via Facebook at Joy Business or at Joy 99.7 FM. And if you tweet, the handle is at Joy 997 FM. Don't forget to hashtag masterclass. You can also send us a text on 1422 across all networks, or join the WhatsApp conversation on 0244 340437, and our facilitators will address your concerns. Attention everyone, class is in progress.
Welcome back to the studio. This is Masterclass here on your Superstation. So do you own any motor vehicle of any kind? Because if you do, I have some good news for you. Goil's new Super Synthetic 5W20 and 5W30 lubes are the best engine oils for your vehicle. These are specially engineered engine oils which efficiently work on all modern petrol and diesel engines. They clean, they protect, they reduce fuel consumption, they prolong oil change intervals, and they enhance your vehicle performance right from when you start up to when you switch off. So go to any Goil filling station today and grab the new Goil Super Synthetic 5W20 and 5W30 engine oils for superior vehicle performance. Goil, they say good energy. Goil, Yenara, Yendia. So I'm just going to put the phone lines out. Just pick up that phone and give us a call if you're listening. Numbers to call 0302 216 541. That's 0302216541. Pick up that phone, give us a call, share your thoughts. We're discussing the issue of leadership. I particularly want to hear your experiences about how you've led your teams, or how you have not led your teams, or how you've managed them, or how you've not managed them, or some information you have, some experience you'd like to share, so that others can become better for it. We cannot all make the same mistakes. So by all means, do pick up that phone, give us a call. Numbers to call 0302216541. Otherwise, you can also send us a comment on WhatsApp on 0244340437. Taka, while you were talking, very beautifully done. You've talked about leading self. You cannot lead others unless you're able to lead yourself. And I think that makes sense. But there was something key you touched on. The fact that leadership comes from within. And so there's great emphasis on who you are. Is there a definition or an existence or a form of being for anyone that is not leadership friendly?
Yes. Let me give you a perfect example. A lack of integrity. And what do I mean by a lack of integrity? You say one thing and you do another. When you say one thing and do another, it's very difficult for people to trust you. And it's very difficult for others to follow you if they don't trust you. I think you're recognizing, for instance, today within corporate Ghana, particularly when you start to see some of the issues that happened in the banking industry, we have what I call a trust deficit in leadership, where people are starting to look at those on the top and they're like, can we really trust that what you say is what you will do? Can we really trust that you have our best interests at heart? So I would say that's one of the first things. Misalignment of what you say and what you will do, and that's lack of integrity. Now, what I found is that many times people don't set out to have a lack of ethics or integrity. Nobody sets out to be, I'm going to be the thief around, I'm going to be the one who says one thing and does another. Circumstances carry them away. They are not strong-willed enough. They're drawn by who knows what. So that's why you need to be doing the inner work, meaning reflecting on yourself, getting feedback to really see whether you are the type of person that people would genuinely want to follow.
So clearly, then it means you need to be working on yourself all the time. Let me ask this one quickly. Is leadership deliberate?
Yes.
Is it deliberate?
Oh, yes, indeed. If you are not intentional about your leadership, particularly in developing yourself and developing others, then you are not as effective in your leadership. Again, you might be walking around and trying to get things done, but when you turn around, there is nobody behind you. You're essentially moving alone. So I think when you're running a business and you're thinking through, do I really have a team that's able to enable me to achieve this vision of this business? It's about looking at yourself and asking yourself, am I the type of person that others would want to follow?
Right. This question was in my mind, and I remember last week we were talking about it, the week before, when we were talking about business culture. I've always said that people are a function of their orientation. So essentially what that means is that where you've been and what you've seen and what you've been affected by growing up, essentially will influence greatly who you end up becoming. So then comes my question, and this one is a long. It says that if people are a function of their orientation, and there's this famous French philosopher, René Descartes, and he's famous to have made the statement, I think, therefore I am. So I'm one without integrity, because that's what I was exposed to. Okay, I think I have a caller, and let's take that call, and then we continue with my question. Good afternoon, you're welcome to Masterclass.
Good afternoon.
Yes, please tell us your name, and then go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, my name is Mary Seriza, and I'm calling from Sakumono.
Right, Mary, talk to us.
So I'm calling to share my experience.
Okay. Mary, just a minute. I think I have some feedback. Your radio is on. If you could just move away or turn it off completely, and then we'll hear you here in the studio.
Is it better?
Yes, better. Go ahead, please.
So I'm calling to share my experience.
Right.
I'm a fashion designer.
Okay.
And my model was that I was employing tailors and seamstresses, people who had learned how to sew, and then polishing them, and they were sewing for me. But in my 10th year, I actually closed down the shop.
Wow.
Because I had applied everything. It's in the informal sector. So the people you employ are from the informal sector. I tried everything. Before I employ you, I interview you. When you come in, I do orientation for you. I organize monthly meetings with all the staff. We discuss, okay, so this is the vision, this is what we want to achieve. Everybody brings their contribution. How do you think we should do it? Do you have any challenges? I was open. If they felt there was something I wasn't doing right, I was open enough for them to be able to tell me, oh, maybe madam, you shut out, that's too much. So we do something small, you get angry, those kind of things. I did everything. I paid them well and everything. But one thing I realized was with our industry, people don't learn sewing with the intention of being employees. And so people advise that, so if you pay them well, they will stay. But I belatedly realized that the better you pay them, the sooner they leave, because once they gather money, they're able to buy a machine, get some corner there. So I forgot the name, was so high. Every few months, you are looking for new employees.
The turnover. Oh, sorry, we've lost Mary there, but I've got a call on the line. And maybe we'll just take note of this comment. Her point is that she lost her staff quickly, but she feels that she did everything right. So maybe you can just share a few words on that after we speak to her call. Good afternoon, Echo. You're welcome to the show. Sorry for keeping you.
Hello, yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you first, as a young entrepreneur starting out.
Echo, if you can please speak up for me, I'll be grateful.
Okay, hello, is it better?
Yes, much better, Echo.
Yeah, I'm saying that if you're a young entrepreneur starting up, okay, and you usually lack the resources, especially the human capital and then the finances, so you tend to do everything on your own. Especially in my space where I'm in the manufacturing space and I did in beverages, it can be difficult trying to please all your customers, trying to be everywhere at the same time in terms of the distribution and ensuring that your production is also on point and making sure that you don't underproduce and then not satisfy your customers. How are you able to bridge that gap and how are you able to come and overcome that challenge?
Okay, thank you so much. Please keep listening. That's a call from Spencer. Essentially, he's talking about the fact that if he's a startup and he hasn't got the resources to employ a lot of people, and he's got a lot of demand that requires that he produces to a certain level, but he doesn't have the resources. How does he bridge the gap between a high demand and a low ability to hire more people? Essentially, a lack of funds or a lack of capital, if you like. How does he bridge that gap? Let's do that quickly, then we'll come back to Mary from Sakomono's question.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks very much, Echo, for your point, your question, which actually I can relate to at a certain point in growing the business, where you sometimes you feel overwhelmed and overextended because you simply don't have the people to respond to the demand. And a couple of points come to mind. There's something you said, Echo. You said you're trying to please everyone. And maybe this is what the issue is. As you start to grow the business, it's about focusing and being able potentially to say no. And that's the difficult one, huh?
No to money, no to customers.
You see, because what I find so many times is that you say no, but you overpromise and underdeliver.
That's correct.
You simply can't meet all the expectations. So that's about managing yourself, because you have to manage your fear that if you say no, they won't come back, or your fear that if you say no, you won't have enough money. Rather than when you start to trust yourself, you recognize that I can say no to this so I can really do well with the business that Yao has given me, and slowly with the increased revenues by doing well and building my reputation and credibility for somebody who's delivering well, I can use those revenues to slowly start to add more human capital, and it will speak for me. But you have to manage that fear, and I think this is the thing as entrepreneurs and startups, we're so afraid. And this is, as I said, this is about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Many of us are not comfortable with saying no. And it's not a complete no. You may say to a client, I've said to clients before, we can't do this right away. This month we can't do it because I want to give you the quality, the best. So why don't we do it the following month? And then people start to recognize you're a person of integrity. But that means managing yourself. So Echo, I would say it's learning to potentially say no so you can focus on the ones that you have and deliver quality, because it's that quality that will be your foundation for increased capital, resources, and investment to expand and bridge the gap.
Brilliant. How about Mary from Sacramento? Mary says she did everything right. The first thing I was going to say was that we can put the number for Busara Africa out.
Yes, indeed.
And then after whatever you share, she can reach out and then the team can help her.
Yes,
so she needs to get to Busara Africa. How does she get to you? What are the numbers to call?
Okay. So the numbers to call first, Mary, please find us on Facebook, Busara Africa on Facebook. Like our page because we'll give regular information there. You can find our website at busara-africa.com. And on both Facebook and our website, you have our phone numbers. But just in case as well, you can call us on 0243 65 9573. We'll also be sharing on Facebook, and hopefully, we can also get on your Facebook. We have a link to our website, which has a summary of those 5 points that I shared.
Brilliant. I've got Lukman on the line from Teshin. Let's talk to Lukman. Good afternoon, Lukman. You're welcome to the show.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Yavana, and good afternoon to your resource person.
Good afternoon. Lukman, I think your volume is a little low. If you can just raise it up a bit for me.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you very much. My opinion is that it seems as if you want to be a leader in Ghana, it's very, very difficult. To be a good leader, the followers might think you are a fool. That is why here in Ghana, you find it difficult to start a business with.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Right. Thank you so much. I think it's yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes the problem is that when you are going to start and you employ people, they end up running you down, and then they go and do their own
thing. Yeah. That was Lukman on the line. Thank you so much, Lukman. We're running out of time, but his point is that sometimes it's like you're not very wise, when you try to be the leader, because you take the fall for everything, and then the people you invest in so well go off and do something for themselves. Maybe just a quick comment there.
I would say very quickly, I empathize with you, Lukman, but I do think, number one, you can have systems in place that protect you. And when we come to leading the organization, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
But also, I think, Lukman, this is back to leading self. It's how you hold people to account. Many times people take advantage of us as leaders because we're not tough enough on them.
Because we want to please everyone.
We want to please everyone. We don't want to be tough on people. And when people can smell that you're not going to be tough on them, then they take advantage of you. But I think it is possible. Where I disagree with you, Lukman, I think it is possible to be a good leader in Ghana. And I think when you invest in leading yourself and developing yourself, you find you start to attract a lot of the good people to you.
Right, okay. Time check in the studio, 53 minutes past the hour of 1. I think I can slip in a few more calls. Numbers to call 0302-216-541. Pick up that phone, give us a call. We're talking about leadership with Taka Awori. Taka, I was going to ask, before another call comes through, if my orientation taught me to lack integrity because of my experiences, and I've become a leader, and I've read René Descartes. He says, I think, therefore I am. So I want to become a good person. How can I become that good person when my orientation is different? Before you answer that, I've got Alawi from Accra. Let's talk to Alawi. Good afternoon, Alawi. You're welcome to Masterclass.
Yeah, thank you so much, my brother, and thanks to your guest in the studio. She's actually elaborated on a number of things. First of all, I want to pick her take on who a leader is as opposed to who a manager is.
Right.
And with her experience in dealing with people, as a facilitator, coach, and a business person, does she see more of our business people as more managers or leaders? That's the first issue I want her to handle for me. Okay. Yeah. That's important.
All right.
And the personal thing I have is that the biggest problem confronting our business, men and women, particularly those who have established their businesses, they build more strong, personalities than even their own corporate entities. And therefore, they don't invest in structures and what have you.
Right.
And they are also so much interested in what I call short-termism. Their focus is on short-term profits, as against building a longer, medium to a longer, a period, so that you can reap and then you sustain it.
Right. Thank you so much. That was Alawi from Accra. He's made a point about people building personalities which are bigger than corporates. But he did ask the question about the difference between a leader and a manager. Just very briefly, 30 seconds.
I'll be very quick.
Yes.
Remember, I said a leader is somebody who gets people to follow them because they want to. A manager is somebody who gets people to do something because they have authority.
Right.
And he asked me which one I see more. I tend to see more managers because people tend to use their titles to get people to do things. And just very quickly on this second one, I fully agree with him. People become bigger than life of their companies because they don't manage their egos. Leading self, manage your ego. It's not about you many times, it's about the company. Manage your ego to realize not just short term, manage yourself so you can think long term. So leading self is the way to think long term and beyond yourself.
Right. Before you answer my question, what one thing would characterize a good leader? Let's say that I've heard Taka talk today, and I want to be a good leader. There are leaders in, there's Napoleon, there's, there are a lot of people in history, but I want to be a good leader. What one thing can I just focus on? Just one thing that can characterize me as a good leader?
Leading self. When you start with self, you will start to find you can't help, even whether you're not seeking to have a title, people will immediately start following you. People will ask you, Yao, lead us, because you are the type of person you are. So leading self. So that's why I say leading from the inside out. When you start with that, you're able to achieve that.
Right. And just very briefly,
your question, yes.
Yes, my question. I was just going to tie this. Let me do this quickly, then we'll come back to my question. Leading self. Just tying it back very quickly to the 5 things you talked about. The best way to do this is, number 1, to know your why and your what. To have a plan for whatever it is you're doing. To get comfortable with being uncomfortable. To develop and invest in yourself. And then to embrace failure.
Yes.
So these are the 5 ways of effectively leading yourself. And then when you have done that, that's one of the key things that distinguishes you to be a good leader.
When you've done that, you start to find people want to follow you, not because you have a title, but because of the vision that you're trying to lead them to, and because of who you are.
Right.
People want to follow you, not because they have to.
Right. Time is running out. Let's do this. We're going to answer my question the next time you come.
Sure.
But what's the takeout from today's discussion? If anyone is listening to us, they didn't tune in early. They've just heard a bit of the discussion. We're talking about leadership, leading self. They've never thought about that. We've talked about if you run a business, pay yourself a salary. Don't just keep putting your hand, if you say come to work at 8 o'clock, you'll be there at 8 o'clock. Someone said to me once, it says, your actions are speaking so loudly, I cannot hear what you are saying. How do we do this effectively? Take out from today's discussion.
I think it's a key reminder. You can't lead another until you lead yourself. Make sure you are the type of person, you are the type of leader that others would want to follow.
Okay, so essentially what we're saying is that if you were not you and you saw you would want to follow you.
I hope
That's
so.
a mouthful.
I hope so.
Right, thank you so much. This has been Masterclass here on the
Thank
Super
you,
Station.
Yao.
This has been exciting. Next week, we're going to do something slightly different. Next week, we're going to go out into the market and talk to some of our in-studio audience and find out what their stories are and how all of this discussion has helped their businesses to grow. And then the week after that, when we come back, we're going to spend some more time with Taka Awori. When we come back in that 3rd week, what are we going to be talking about?
We're going to focus on some of the challenges on leading others, like some of the issues that Mary described. So when you lead people that disappoint you, how do you engage people? How do you make sure you get the best out of people? So the next time I'm with you, it'll be on focusing on leading others.
Leading others after you successfully led yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been Masterclass. My name is Yabanafo. Up next is the news at 2. See you same time next week.